Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Datastream. This will be Part 30, Chapter 30. The move into the dorms was a pretty painless process. The worst thing that happened was Kirishima and Zero setting the kitchen on fire when they tried to prove to Bakugo that they could cook. Spoiler, they can't. The rest of the summer was spent training for their provisional licenses. Hitoshi wasn't too worried about his license. Not only had he been training with Aizawa for years, he'd mastered his quirk with the assistance of his sunshine. The entire class actually had gotten some tips from Izu in the past few weeks, from Ashido creating a new move she called Acid Blast, to Uraraka's Gravity Reversal, and even Hagakure figuring out how to bend light to make light refractions. Izuku was fully invested in making sure this class would pass their provisional license exams. Izuku wasn't going to be attending, though. He had his own exam to go through. From what Hitoshi could understand, the Intelligence Hero licensing exam was a true nightmare. Not only would Izu need to be able to list about 100 different laws, but he'd also have to be on patrol, with someone hovering over his shoulder and watching, grading his every move and decision. It'd be one thing to just have a physical exam like what the regular hero courses have to go through for their exams, but Izuku's exam will be a lot harder. So, my question for you is, why aren't you worried about your exam? Hitoshi asked his beautiful green-eyed boyfriend as he was laying his head on his lap. Why would I be worried? Izu tilted his head, so he was looking up at Hitoshi. Hito, the practical portion of this exam is the only part that's going to be difficult at all, and I've been doing basically that for 5 years. Izu shrugged and turned his attention back to the TV they were watching. You're not worried at all about your practical? Shouto asked as he played with one of Izuku's hands. Nah, like I said, I've been doing this for about 5 years. You want to know what was nerve-wracking? The USJ. I was calling for backup, emergency medical responders, the police, and helping whoever was in a tangle with villains. That then turned into watching my uncle nearly get killed, and then I'd help the police handle the aftermath of the attack, sort out which of the villains were just unconscious, which were in need of medical attention, get the surveillance footage to the proper parties, all while Uncle was dying in an ambulance. Izuku took a deep breath. After that, nothing else really can measure up in terms of difficulty. Hitoshi leaned down to kiss Izu's head. Yeah, I can see that. I guess you really don't have any reason to be worried about the exam after all. Are you worried about your exams? Izu asked them both. Shouto smiled softly and leaned against Hitoshi. No. Between all the training I've done with you and Toshi, I feel I'm ready for the exam. Same here, Hitoshi said. Okay, just remember, Hito, you can't use your quirk much. It'll likely be marked against you, Izuku reminded. And yeah, Hitoshi had almost forgotten about that. The HPSC didn't want someone with a quirk like his to make it as a hero. Well, joke's going to be on them. He's going to pass this exam, get his provisional license, and start making a real name for himself in the underground with Aizawa-sensei. The day of the exams quickly arrived, and Izuku gave both of his boyfriends a kiss and wished them the best of luck. He had his own exam and wouldn't be able to attend, but he was going to make sure to check in later to see who all passed. Izuku was driven to one of the remote offices the HPSC used for surveillance and watched as one of their examiners with an intelligence quirk was set up to be able to see and hear what Izuku would be doing. Izuku almost felt bad for the guy. He knew what his mind was capable of, what his vision looked like. This guy wouldn't know what hit him by the time everything was said and done. Once the official was all plugged in, Izuku started to stream. Can you see everything? He asked just to make sure, and the guy affirmed he could. So Izuku did what he did best, and started camera hopping. An hour later, Izuku had helped to direct heroes to 12 petty crimes, called in their takedowns, and coordinated an ambulance on 2 of them, when the heroes hadn't gotten there in time to prevent all injuries. Just as they were about to end the test, an emergency signal came through in an area that Izuku had been directed away from. This is Shroud. Need emergency backup at Kiyoshi Ward Shopping Center, came the panicked voice of one of Izuku's favorite underground heroes. The villain Muscular is here. Izuku quickly got to work, and was instantly having multiple conversations at once. Shroud, this is Datastream. Keep him away from the civilians. I'm getting you some backup now. Jumpstart, Mirko, this is Datastream. Villain Muscular is at Kiyoshi Ward. Your assistance is requested. Musutafu General, this is Datastream. There's a villain attack at the Kiyoshi Ward Shopping Center. There will likely be injuries. Please ensure you are prepped for immediate injuries. After getting the assents from all 3, Izuku spent some of his focus on the villain himself. Fortunately, Muscular was seeming to enjoy torturing the shoppers and hadn't yet killed anyone. Shroud, I need you to put up an illusion that's showing the villain a mall of panicked shoppers attempting to evacuate, but getting in everyone's way. I have both Mirko and Jumpstart on the way, but I don't want him to see them. Until they're in position, he directed to her. Got it, came her instant reply, and she got to work setting up the requested illusion with her quirk, Illusionary Wall. Shroud was able to get all but one victim that Muscular was actively tormenting to safety before Mirko and Jumpstart showed up, and Izuku was able to get all 16 of the injured carted off to the hospital. Once the two heroes were in position, Shroud dropped all her illusions, startling Muscular enough to where he wasn't fast enough to dodge Mirko's kick to the face, and while he was stunned from that, Mirko got the last victim away from him while Jumpstart sent enough electricity through him to render him unconscious. Izuku had the last victim in an ambulance on the way to the hospital and police on the scene minutes after the quirk-canceling cuffs were on the villain. He let himself sigh in relief. The entire ordeal, from emergency call to villain arrest, only took 10 minutes. Thank you, Aizawa. You can disconnect now, came the voice of the examiner. Izuku came back out of his dream blinking. He had honestly forgotten he was still taking his licensing exam at the end, more worried about making sure the victims were safe and the villain caught. Izuku looked at the examiner and was a little amused to see that he was shocked, with his eyes wide and staring at Izuku. So, how'd I do? Izuku asked with his best sunshine smile. He didn't want to scare the examiner any more than he already was, after all. How did you do that? He asked. The initial hour alone was enough for you to pass the exam, but that last event, how? Izuku shrugged. I've been training with Nezu for years. He knows how my quirk works, and he's helped me to develop it. My brain processes information at the same speeds as a computer, and just like a computer, I'm able to focus on multiple tasks at a time. I see, he replied quietly. Well, I would like to inform you that you have passed, and you are now a fully licensed intelligence hero. Congratulations, Datastream. Guys, you passed, all of you. Yeah, we did. How did you do on your exam? Oh, I passed too, flying colors. I had an hour to patrol, and the examiner said I would have passed just on that, but a few minutes before the exam was over, there was an attack at a shopping center. Pretty big-name villain showed up and started hurting people just because he could, and I handled it. Congrats. So, you're now what, a pro-hero? Shut your mouth. No, I am not a pro-hero. I'm a fully licensed intelligence hero. There is a difference. Uh-huh. But you can now do your whole Datastream thing out in the open, right? Yep. I think Nezu is going to do a whole debut for me, officially introducing me to a few heroes and letting them know that they don't need to go through him to get in contact with me anymore. There goes my free time. Sasaki Mirai was staring at the screen in surprise. He had used this analyst a few times before on cases, and they had always been a huge help on any case he was working at the time, but never once did he think that Datastream was a child. According to this, the boy is just barely 16 years old, and he's been helping Mirai on his cases for the past 4 years. Since he was 12. Mirai had been thinking of reaching out to Datastream for assistance in his latest case, but this new information is upsetting. There's no way he's going to be using the help of a child. And now that he knows just how young he was, he's going to have to go through all of his old cases he's worked on to make sure they were all completed correctly. Ugh. There's going to be so much extra work for him to go through now. And he just doesn't have the time right now. The Shihisaikai Yakuza case was starting to pick up speed. They had recently had a run-in with the reservoir dogs, and the small team had somehow survived this encounter. Not only were they all alive when they were found, but all their chronic health conditions had been cured. There wasn't any information about there being a healing quirk among their ranks, but the research was still in the early stages. Ugh, I have so much work now. Nezu-sensei, you never told me I'd have so many work requests once I got my full license, Izuku complained. Why do I have 30 different requests all of a sudden? Do you have this many? I don't think you have this many. Nezu blinked at his student. He had not thought that Izuku would have that much work after only being licensed for 3 days. It had taken him almost 5 years before he was well known enough to get that many requests at a time. You don't have to accept them all, pup. In fact, it's quite common for those of us with an intelligence license to only accept 3 or 4 cases at a time. Really? That few? Yes. Well, I will usually have about 6 or 7 at any given time, but I'm also running a school, Nezu admitted. Since you're only just now starting out, officially, I wouldn't expect you to have more than 3 at once right now. I know you are capable of doing much more, but please keep in mind that you are still in the process of learning your future tasks. Uncle said that I'd be principal and all but title by the time I graduate. Was there any truth to that? His only answer was a sharp grin. Right. So I shouldn't take on more outside work than you for a while. Izuku started sorting the work requests into separate stacks to make it more manageable. Oh, Class 1A is going to be meeting with the Big 3 today to learn about work studies, Nezu mentioned as an aside as he was working on a case of his own. I think Tokuda is going to try to fight the entire class at once to show them how much they can learn through the experience. He's going to get his ass handed to him if he does, Izuku muttered absently. Shall we watch the fight when it happens? Nezu's eyes gleamed with mischief. Izuku's eyes gleamed to match. I would love to see how 1A treats Mirio. Shouta watched in amusement as his kids got into position, ready to face off against Tokuda. After all the work these kids had put into their training and all the time Izuku had put into them as well, this was the best class he'd ever taught. He had agreed to let Tokuda fight the entire class, not for them to see his level of experience, but to show off his class to Tokuda. Kirishima and Sato made the first moves, like they often do, but they rejoined the rest of the class when Tokuda disappeared into the ground. Tokuda's first target seemed to be Aoyama, who was quickly taken out of the fight. However, the others had been watching, and Asui spit into her hand and then started to rub it onto her stomach. Just in time, too, as Tokuda's next target was Asui. The spit she had rubbed on herself seemed to be her paralytic spit that she had recently developed, and Tokuda's movements instantly slowed down. While he was distracted, Bakugo came up with an explosive punch to his side. The punch hit, but Tokuda activated his quirk moments later. Shooting back up to the surface, he was met with a spray of acid by Ashido and a cocoon of tape from Sero. Before he could get the chance to recover from that, Uraraka came in fast and low and slapped him, sending him floating. Tokuda blinked in surprise at the student, surprised that they were able to take him down so quickly. The only part Shouto was surprised about was that his nephew's gremlins didn't get a hit in. Remember, not everyone who was able to host you for your internships will be able to host you for your work studies. You will need to reach out to new heroes if your internship hero will not be able to host you. If you are unsure, please come see me and I will let you know and help you find a new hero to do your work studies with. Shouta addressed the class after Tokuda and the other members of the Big Three left. He was certain that Shinzo was going to pick him again, and to be honest, he was counting on it. The boy was well on his way to being a force of nature, and Shouta wanted to make sure he would be able to take his place as the #1 underground hero when he eventually decided to retire from hero work. Monoma, though, he had interned under Oculus, and she didn't take work study students. Shouta remembered that Monoma had enjoyed his internship, and he was thinking of offering him a work study under him along with Shinzo. With that in mind, Shota's next thoughts went to Todoroki and Kaminari. They had both interned under rescue heroes, Snowfall and Generator, and unless he was mistaken, they also didn't offer work studies. Come to think of it, neither did the heroes that Uraraka and Asui interned with. Shouta was curious where they would choose to go for their work studies. Maybe Zu would have some ideas. Work study ideas for your gremlins. Go. Hito and Nato are going to you. They both want to be unders, and there's no one better than you. Denki and Shouto should go to Papa. They both said that while they liked the rescue work they had done, it wasn't something they could see themselves doing long term. They both want to be limelight, and with such powerful quirks, I think they would be best with someone like Papa. Plus, Papa mentioned wanting an intern, and while this isn't an internship, it's close. Good ideas. You talk to your boys. I'll talk to Zashi. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 30 of Datastream. Chapter 31 will be up next. Hope you all are still enjoying this fic, and as always, thank you so much for listening.